Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show, Thursday night football style with Seahawks Brendon Nelson. Oh my goodness, too much goodness all in one go here, Brendan. I'm loving this. We've got and not just not just a Thursday night game, but a rival game, a nemesis type game.
Absolutely.
And we're going to dive in tonight. And thank you, Brendan, for coming. I love the fact we can get you in here every week and go back onto yours. I get great feedback by that. Thank you, folks, for giving us that feedback. Lets us know when we're going the right direction online here with this stuff. And you guys have called for it. We're both enjoying this. And so thank you for coming in. I know you're squeezing a little tight here because with the game and stuff, but I do appreciate it. We're definitely got a lot to dive into on this Rams matchup. So we'll get into that first. We gotta put a little bow on the San Francisco 49er game, as we always do on these kind of segments of just I watched a couple of your videos, but just if you had some just kind of base final takeaways off that Niner game, walking away from it, where do you kind of stand with it?
I was surprised to find that I was kind of thinking about this game from the opposite angle that a lot of people were, where a lot of people said they were really happy with the defense. Like the defense kept us in that game until the offense finally got it together after like 5 straight drives of 3 and out. And there was some truth to that. But I was actually coming out of that game not really feeling that good about the defense at all. You're playing a team that has a decent offense, but you're playing a team that has a very bad quarterback. You're playing a team that has, at one point, a rookie quarterback who is clearly not ready for the NFL. Like, he's overthrowing guys by 10 yards on some of those plays. And that first 25 minutes or so, I think they had like 200 yards of offense. And somehow, some way, we're only down 7-0. I think a lot of that was just because they didn't have a quarterback, and also they didn't have a kicker. Like that ended up weighing heavily on the 49ers throughout that game. And yeah, I'm still not happy with the way this defense is playing. And a lot of people, I saw like a real Hawk blogger and Real Hawk Talk talking about this game a few days ago. They were saying like, this defense is moving in the right direction. I'm still really not happy with the offense. I actually think that once you put those 5 straight 3 and outs to start the game away, the offense started to do some things that I liked, both in terms of their process and their results. Mm-hmm. Now, the way in which that game started is unacceptable, and I was shocked at how lifeless they started that game, especially coming off the 2 straight losses. But once we got into things, I think we actually did some pretty good things against a Niners defense that I do think is pretty good. Yeah. So that was kind of my main takeaway. I think this offense is moving in the right direction, but I still can't believe we've spent the last 3+ years and all this time, money, and effort into building this defense, and it struggles to stop Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit my counter on it too. The second I saw it, did you feel this way? Trey Lance enters the game in the second half, and a little bit of relief escapes you. A little bit of a sigh goes, "Oh, okay." I that's my feeling on it. I mean, he could have maybe come out and been a freak show, but I just thought Garoppolo was at least, and I wasn't big on Garoppolo, but that he at least could test Seattle's defense, to your point, on the way he started it out, where it's, look, he's not lighting the world on fire. That's not the quarterback he is. But if he's like that, if he's efficient, if he's pushing the ball up the field, minus the kicker. The kicker's a great point, by the way. Nobody's really talking about that aspect as much in Seahawks land, especially coming out of this game, is that they lost their kicker right at the start of the game. And they had a couple of times they kept trotting that other guy out there. God bless him, couldn't do it. Couldn't get it done. Wishnowski, man. He was trying, but that was a big benefit to us in that respect of holding them back and not giving more points on the board past that at 7 points. You felt 7-7 at halftime, like this should have been way worse. And I agree with you. I don't think that there's anything you take away from this game as saying that this is a defense that now is fixed. It's not tested in the same way the Titans could. It's not tested in the same way the Vikings would. And those aren't juggernaut offenses. They're just very good offenses. And we want to measure ourselves against very good offenses like we'll be taking on tonight. So I think it's all around, I'm kind of in the same boat. I like a little bit of the performance increase in certain respects, but again, you're playing against that rookie quarterback who I was predicting this going back in this offseason. You put Trey Lance out there, first season, that young kid, he's not going to be ready. Not in the, he'll not be ready, but he'll give you some of those great splash plays. Yeah, you got a couple of splash plays, but really not through that whole half. Deer in the headlights was what I kind of saw out there on the football field from him. And so I'm with you. I still share reservations tonight. Maybe we'll show me a little bit more. I'm still expecting a high scoring game, and we'll get just onto that in just a sec with it. But one question I want to ask you too, on where, let's say we take out Chris Carson's neck. between him and Collins right now, do you feel like Collins should be starting? Should be getting more significant carries, or do you still kind of feel like Carson's the guy to ride with here? He's your bell cow.
That's actually really tough to answer for me because Carson, and I think we kind of knew this going in, is not a great fit for this offense. We knew that when we re-signed him. We knew that when we hired Waldron. Carson's probably not what he has in mind for a number one running back.
Right.
In many ways, he's probably antithetical to what Waldron would like in his offense. But we brought him back anyway because he was cheap enough to where we felt like, hey, he can do enough good to warrant this contract. And I think that was a good decision. And Collins is clearly a better fit for this offense, I think. I don't know if I don't think he's better than Carson, but when you take a look at Carson's, apparently, according to what I'm hearing right now about Carson, apparently he has a condition in his neck that is just never going to get better. It's just something he's going to have to deal with for the rest of his life. And based off what I heard from Carroll, it's just going to flare up every now and then, and he won't be able to play. And that just is what it is. It's never going to get better. That's what I'm hearing.
That's great. That's always good to hear.
maybe you do go ahead and start Collins. I will say I was surprised at how fast Seahawks fans turned on Carson because he had, one or two bad games. I saw it in my chats all week. I saw it in my comment section. People just turning on Carson basically because he had one bad game against the Niners, whereas Collins had a good game. And it just surprises me how fickle fans can be sometimes with that stuff. I still know Carson is Carson. He's going to be able to help us throughout this season. But maybe you do go to Collins just, if for no other reason, maybe that helps preserve Carson for the end of the season.
I'm in kind of that boat of it. I'm not fully out on Carson. I do think if you see through the first 4 games, he has looked a hair slower to the hole than in recent years past. That's taken just a little, maybe it's just a blink. It's not something that's substantial, like he's lost a full step, but he's already a guy that runs out there at about a 4.6. And if he loses any speed at all or quickness there, it's noticeable. It really stands out. And I think our line isn't good enough to sustain blocks necessarily for that extra half blink. And I wonder if Collins is a little bit better. Now, I still want to use Carson. He's a hammer and he's got to wear down defenses. And like I've maintained with Rashad Penny, it's just you need just kind of 2 different style types that can attack a particular defense in whatever way that defense is vulnerable to be attacked in the running game. Some defenses are better against stopping the big backs. Some defenses have a harder time with the guys that are quicker, more jukier, like Alex Collins is. So I just want to maybe a few more carries towards Alex Collins a little bit rather than, towards Carson's. The Cardinals got this problem a little bit. I feel like they got that Chase Edmonds right now is averaging 5.9 yards per carry, yet they keep giving the ball more to James Conner, who's averaging like 3.7, and you go, well, I know he's the hammer and all that, but isn't the guy who gets more yards? You want to lean to him maybe a little bit more. All right, well, I think we kind of sit on the same place too with the offense. I didn't speak to that, but I think it's exactly the same spot. We both talked about this enough ad nauseum, but it's a work in progress. Starting out a game rough, at least coming along. We want to see improvement through the year, improvement through a game if you're going to start rough, maybe some sustained 3 quarters of good offense eventually. God forbid we get to that point. But we're both in, I think, the same point, right? Where it's, look, this is going to be the work in progress. As long as you're putting up the points to the board at the end of the day, as long as you are getting some drives through there and we're seeing that progress, we're going to feel pretty encouraged about that for the long-term benefits of that to this season. Is that probably pretty accurate?
Right. But at a certain point, your talent does have to take over. And tonight, we'll get into tonight's game a little bit more later, but that is not really a good defense we're playing, which is surprising to a lot of people, myself included. So far, that Rams defense has not been good at all, I don't think. So At a certain point, your talent needs to take over and say, I'm putting up at least 30 points tonight because that's what we'll probably need in order to get this win. And I will say that work in progress or not, 5 straight 3-and-outs to start a game is highly unacceptable. -3 yards through the first 25 minutes. There is a limitation to what I will put up with from this offense, and that definitely surpassed the limit.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. There was no fight. I think you're pointing out about their lack of energy was spot on. They didn't look like they were ready to play, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Not much on the defense side of the ball. They got it together quicker, but the offensive side of the ball to get that just overwhelmed. It just sucks when we see the offense at that point where everything is just collapsing instantaneously. That Russell's throws are a little off. Nobody's catching. You're going, okay, what's going on today, guys? What did everybody get high before the game? What's happening here?
Yeah, It reminded me a lot of the Daryl Bevel games at the end, near the last couple years of the Bevel era. And I didn't hate Bevel. I didn't
Yeah.
actually. I think there were some things he did well, but the last 2 years of the Bevel era, we had a lot of games that started like that on offense, and then they would get going eventually.
Yeah.
But one thing about Schottenheimer, even though there were a lot of problems with his offenses, they really did a pretty good job of moving away from that. They didn't have those games where it took them 20 minutes to get a first down. They didn't have
Right.
those games where they just went 3 and out 4 times to start the game.
Yeah.
So,
well, especially to your point on this offense, this new offense is supposed to be programmed to get sustained drives. Our last offense wasn't really programmed with its big emphasis on taking the shots down the football field, if you think about it, because those are low percentage plays, to getting sustained first down drives. Maybe a little understandable why that one wouldn't be under Bevel or even under Schottenheimer to that degree. But under this new guy, you're supposed to be able to move the chains. It's supposed to be all about the short throws and sustaining drives and screen passes and bubble screens. So that's the part that does have to get embraced as we go forward here and get better. Is no 3 and outs. You guys aren't supposed to be doing that anymore here. There's supposed to be some easy throws every single time, and we'll see tonight. You're right. I think they're going to have to crack more than 30 points to win this football game. I don't think that if your defense, you keep them under 30 points, that's a huge win for our defense in this game. I don't think you do it coming on the heels of what the Rams did last week. Well, just before we preview a little bit more in depth on this Ram attack, one thing I also wanted to get your opinion on that I've been watching, I'm sure you've gotten a lot of feedback in your chat as well on this, is the inactivity of the Seattle Seahawks recently as far as trades go, or guys that are available on the open market, not even via trade, just out there and open on the market. And they continue to sit on somewhere between the neighborhood of 12.1 and $13 million of cap space, plus, of course, Russell's base, which could have been converted to bonus at any time.
right.
They don't do anything though. Where are you? Give me just the full dissertation on your thoughts on where you're at with this.
Well, in a big picture sense, I hate it. I hate leaving stuff. I hate leaving stuff on the table for a year like this. I understand that we play in maybe the best division in football. I understand that things have not gotten off to the best start in that regard because you had, teams like the Cardinals, they really should have lost to the Vikings, but they didn't. We probably should have beaten the Titans, but we didn't. So that puts you in a worse position than you were thinking you were going to be in at this point. But I don't think there's any point in pushing most of your chips in and then just leaving this little bit behind. If you're going to go, you may as well go. And yeah, in general, I definitely don't. I definitely don't like leaving that 13 million out there. I hate it. What I can say is that I think sometimes we as fans do assume that the player pool that we're drawing from is infinite, and it's not. Sometimes you will find this theoretically good match between a team and a player, and then the player simply doesn't want to come. Geno Atkins is a good example. Everybody's confused why we're not getting Geno Atkins, and I am too. And I'm having trust issues with this organization right now. I don't trust them right now because they've made way too many bad decisions lately. But it is possible that maybe Geno Atkins does want way too much money than he should get. We don't know. There are just some things we don't know. It came up with the Stephon Gilmore thing where maybe he wasn't interested in playing for any team without a new contract unless he was allowed to go home to Carolina. A couple people in my chats mentioned that. So I think sometimes we as fans might just assume that every player would be ready and willing to come play for your team. And sometimes that's not what it is. Sometimes you have a very limited amount of options that you can actually go get. So I don't know. There's no way for us to know as fans. We're just sitting here working with the little information we have. I do think that with $13 million, you should be able to do something. And maybe you're just going to wait till the trade deadline because then you can really maybe pull one out on a team. Maybe you can really just pull a coup like you did with Dunlap last year. But
that would be nice.
It is definitely wearing on me that this team seems content with what they have.
Where will you be at if we get past the trade deadline and we've not made a move?
Then I mean, every situation needs to be analyzed individually, of course, but the general idea of leaving 13 million in cap room just sitting there in a year when you are really trying to make a run, because we are. If we weren't trying to make a run, we would have done things very differently.
Yes.
I don't think there's any way we would have made some of the decisions we made with like Dunlap, possibly guys like Gerald Everett. I don't know if we bring those guys in. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's that we would all those contracts are the voidable years this offseason, which would look to be we're going for it. We're trying to maximize the cap space this season, get as much cleared in. I mean, even the Carson deal, like you said, the Ever deal, the Posick deal. There's like the Hyde deal, I believe, Mayo, all of them had voidable years at the end of it, with signs of trying to get in there and look. Man, yeah, would it not be a little bit of a sign if we're saying there's some signs of ineptitude within the front office and the way they've managed things and gone after things where they have a schizophrenic view? They'll go all in on a trade like Adams, for instance, going to pay the moon in, but then we're going to now we're going to draw the line in the budget. Would that be a sign to you again of a little bit of ineptitude in a year where you're going for it, or would it be a sign to you maybe even that they were looking to go on and push on from Russell Wilson at the end of the day, that there was a little bit of silent possibility and that's what's happening here in the background?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I don't trust this team right now. There was definitely a period of time where I really trusted this organization to do the right things, even when they made unconventional moves. But because they've made so many obvious mistakes, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but like moving Puna Ford to 3 tech, moving DJ Reed to the left side, drafting, and okay, I'll forget the draft picks because every team misses draft picks. I understand, but I don't trust this team right now I can't just go, well, I don't know if I agree with this, but in Pete, I trust. I definitely can't do that anymore. Like, the Dwayne Eskridge thing right now, I don't know if you saw, but he's on IR now, going to miss at least the next 3 weeks. And normally, if I trusted this team, I would just be like, oh, he must have gotten a really bad concussion. But now there's a part of me that's like, do our doctors just suck? Is there something wrong with our doctors? Did we do something wrong? Did we bring him back in a bad way? I'm looking at like Gerald Everett. I think he's not going to play tonight because he didn't get a second negative test. Normally, I would just be like, okay, whatever. But because I don't trust this organization right now, I'm looking at it and going, did somebody forget to test him again? Like, I'm wondering about the competency of this organization sometimes. It kind of reminds me of, you remember the Steve Hutchinson poison pill thing where we transition tagged him and we just looked like the stupidest team in the world that offseason because Holmgren wanted to franchise tag him and there was something lost in translation. So sometimes teams just do make really dumb mistakes. We can't just assume these guys always know what they're doing. They are fully capable of just screwing up. So yeah, I don't trust this organization very much right now, I have to admit.
Well, your reference of in Pete we trust, John we trust, that's how you felt in 14, 15, 16, is you might question a little bit of what they did, but you gave them the benefit of the doubt because you did think that they would figure it out at the end of the day, or that their process was solid. And I think right now that's a little bit of what I look to in this point of the process not being solid or being maybe ran potentially by emotions. I don't know if it is a subtle nod to the potential moving on from Russell. It might be, it might not be. I don't know if it is a matter of they thought there'd be more guys available, like you said, where maybe they had made this plan for striking while the iron is hot, and that there's a lot of guys who suddenly flood the market at the trade deadline, and you got all this money to bring them aboard. But we're finding that might not be the case. Maybe it does. We don't know. It's a lot can happen in the next 3 weeks. But to sit on that money would drive me crazy, Brendon. It would drive me absolutely insane that with your Hall of Fame quarterback, like to your point, if you were dead set on wanting to move on Russ, if that was really your standpoint, which I don't endorse, and I don't think you would have endorsed, but take whatever you could have gotten last season and go call it what it is. You clear out, you renew the deck. This hold off a year approach so that it makes it more palatable for the fan base to wrap their head around, or whatever their theory is, or that they want to get down to 26 million instead of 39 million. It will look like a wasted season and a little bit of a mark on the end of Carroll's legacy here.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was so harsh on Carroll after that Vikings game. I was saying, I don't want the Seahawks fan base to just remember him for this stuff that's happening right now, where he cannot build a defense after this is now year 4 of the rebuild. And he's supposed to be one of the greatest defensive coaches of all time. And it seems like the more resources he puts into this defense, the worse it gets. Like, so ironically, the best defense we've had in the post Legion of Boom era was that first year where you had very little talent. Yeah. Earl played 4 games. KJ Wright played 5 games. You had legends like Barkvarius Mingo and Jacob Martin, and who was the guy from the Dolphins? Deion Jordan playing significant snaps.
Justin
and that
Coleman.
Defense, that defense was okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And then the next year you bring in guys like Clowney and it's bad. The next year you bring in a bunch of guys, it's historically bad. And I don't understand how you keep adding assets and the defense doesn't get better. And now there's actually one other thing. I don't know how you saw this from that Niners game. One thing that we did on defense that seemed to work really well was we started playing some dime. We started playing some dime defense. We put Ryan Neal on the field with Blair and I think a little bit of Amadi as well. And we had success there. So that's interesting. That's the kind of stuff that I like. Find something that works and goes with it. But it does occur to me as kind of ironic that now we're looking at a situation where our best defensive set might be with Jordan Brooks on the bench. So even with that positive, I have to look for the bad part of that.
It's
and
like,
I'm
what's the
just like,
opposite of silver lining, right? What's the
the
phrase for
opposite
the
of silver lining.
a poo lining.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I mean, Brooks doesn't shock me, and maybe I'm too hard on it. You know, with me with this, on the coverage skills, I've railed on this. I just don't think he'll ever really improve that significantly coverage wise. Maybe once he gets to middle linebacker, it'll be a little bit better than when he's at the will and he's really out. Will, you're out there, man. You gotta take Kittle up the seam and you gotta run step for step. It's tough. It's a tough job. But I'm agree with you. I did see that dime. I loved it. I thought this is what we should see from you, Carol. I know not everything's going to work trying new stuff, not everything, but try new stuff. Don't just stay back in the old mentality of things when stuff is historically not working well. And this defense through the first 3 games was back on a historically bad pace. Get out of that. Find a way to shake it through and get the best playmakers on your defense out on the football field. Ryan Neal's a playmaker. Is he one of your best defenders? I don't know, but he's a playmaker. The ball finds him. He's a good tackler. He's, he seems like he helps your defense out when he's out there. I've called him like Jordan Babineau, Brendan. He's like a less good cover Jordan Babineau, maybe a better tackler,
Something like that.
Something like that. And then the Marquise Blair on the other side. And then what you've done, it was really nice, innovatively, like that you got your front 4. Those guys can operate as just basically light outside linebackers. Nobody's going to act like a Sam there, but you can run your 4-3 like traditionally with the 3 linebackers behind the front 4 at that point and let them roam. And especially Seattle likes to put their 2-1 techs up front to take up guys when you got an Al Woods and a Brian Monet and they're taking up 2 blockers apiece, or Puna's doing the same. Now you got guys that will be able to run free out there. They're not going to have guards coming down the second level, taking them out because that's what they're going to try to do against dime, right? You go dime and the offense is in like 3 wide receiver sets, right? Where they've got that extra blocker kind of in there close. They're going to try to run it on you at that point. Niners didn't really on us. They weren't able to do much with it. But theoretically, if those safeties are good tacklers that are playing the outside linebackers there, that's where you might be onto something a little bit. I loved it, man. I loved it.
Yeah, I like that. I liked it too.
Well, let's bend into this game. I'd love to see what your kind of thoughts are. I was watching some of your video on this. I thought you were pretty spot on as far as this taking a team effort. I couldn't agree more. But let's hear what your thoughts on where you see this game going as far as what it's going to take, and then how you see it's going. How what ideally, and then what's reality.
Well, this whole post Legion of Boom rebuild kind of happened because of the Rams, right? Because I really think the reason why we blew everything up after 2017 was because you lost by 5 touchdowns in that Rams game at home for the division. And I still kind of think, I don't know, we'll never know. I've always kind of felt like if we had lost a close game in that game, I think Carroll would have been like, okay, we're close. Bring back Cable, bring back Bevel, bring back Richard, bring back all these guys. So in many ways, and bring back these players that we lost that offseason. I think we lost like Jimmy Graham. I think we lost Sherman, basically lost Earl, et cetera, et cetera. So in many ways, this all happened because of the Rams. This all happened because of Sean McVay. And I kind of feel like we've been chasing McVay's offense ever since. We've been trying to find a defense that could actually slow that offense down. Last year, you finally find it. You actually have 3 pretty good games on defense against the Rams. I would consider all 3 games we played against the Rams last season to be decent on defense, at least. And now they upgraded quarterback. So now you've got this new challenge. You finally found a way to slow down the Goff Rams, but now they upgraded quarterback. Like just as soon as you figure it out, they upgrade. So, but at the end of the day, a lot of what you've done over the last 3+ years to build this defense has been designed around trying to find some way to slow down the McVay offense. So I know it didn't really show up against the Vikings. It arguably didn't show up that well against the Titans. It was mixed against the Niners. If you don't show up for this game, then what was the point of it all? And that was kind of the crux of my video I posted this morning, where I was like, if you're going to spend 3+ years building a new defense with the goal of handling the Rams offense chief in your mind, and you come out in this game with a lot on the line, and if you can't do something, then you really did just waste all that time and money and effort. So the defensively, I know you're not going to shut them down, because that's not how things work in the NFL right now. You don't shut anybody down. Nobody shuts anybody down. The Panthers might have had the best defense in the league last week, and they got destroyed by the Cowboys because the Cowboys have a good offense. That's how it works. But you got to make some plays. You got to do some things right. And you got to show some return on that investment. That's my main thing for the defense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this isn't just one game. This swings a lot, which I think you referenced in your video too, about how much this game um, portends to the rest of the season, and what's due to happen from it, what this means, what's the fallout from it, what you still have to deal with in the upcoming future in tough football games. That a team that's scuttling, like you're talking about, a team without really any sort of legitimate defense. We're talking about a bottom 25 defense at that point, if not worse. What is it you can really hope to do with that? And we can start talking. They can start, people are your chat, my chat, they can talk all about the trades that are out there at that point. There ain't gonna be a lot of trades to fix that kind of sinking vessel, right? The cabins
Right.
are taking on that way. There ain't much you're gonna be able to do.
Right.
So I agree, and I think you're right about the team effort stuff. Guys got to stay on their gaps. Guys got to set the edge on the outside zone runs in this game. The corners have got to tackle and come up and help. It's a game that's going to take that type of team effort. That's what the Cardinals game gave them last week. The Rams. Did you have a chance to see that game?
I saw a little bit of it. I was very surprised by what I saw. I will say that.
I had a little bit of a light bulb moment watching that game. I wonder about if you think this as well. We give Russell, and we're saying with Russell, he's got to take some time to learn this new offense, and he's taking on this new offense for the first time in his career. And then we look at Stafford, and Stafford's doing the same thing. It's not the first in his career. The guy's had probably like 13 offenses in his career, but this is the first time I believe that he's running a McVay offense, and he's learning it anew. And so we go, well, Russell's going to go through some bumps in the road here, but we don't ever really think about that with nobody's really thought about that, in my opinion, or talked about that much with Stafford. It's just, oh, he'll get in there and he'll instantly fit right with the genius of McVay and hit the raw ground. I thought last week looked a lot of bit of, not necessarily he had just a bad game and couldn't hit anything. He was still trying to kind of get comfortable in his reads and, okay, I'm going to go here. And then, oh, I'm supposed to be over here. And then he just kind of wasn't quite comfortable, I guess is the way I would say it.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to lose track of stuff like that. And I think part of it is the McVay offense has been in place on that team for several years. They're just adding a new quarterback, whereas we're introducing all of our offensive players to a new system. And you're seeing that not just with Wilson. And by the way, Wilson, I got a little mad at him for some of the stuff in the Titans game, but to say that he's playing bad so far would definitely be missing it. He has zero turnovers through 4 games.
Yeah.
How many other starting quarterbacks in the NFL have 0 turnovers through the first 4 games? Probably not. I don't know if there are any.
Yeah.
So I don't think Wilson is necessarily struggling, but you're right. And for Stafford to have some hiccups in his game in that new offense, it makes sense. And maybe we as fans kind of lost sight of that because we know that everything else on that offense has been in place for a while.
Yeah. And let me clarify too. I do think Wilson's playing good, and it's marvelous to see him playing efficiently and clean football as he's learning the new offense. But even within those, like, the 5 3 and outs to start the game in San Francisco, there are throws that he was missing there that were the short throws that he's got to hit in this offense. There were reads he's got to make. And now the offensive line at times couldn't pass protect on certain plays, and there was other miscues within that as well. But he's obviously still learning this offense, still bringing it aboard, and the signs of that do show up throughout the games. It's the part that speaks to Russell's greatness is that he's still able to be, as I was saying, marvelous in that, as he's got those growing adjustments, kind of coming along. But I think I see the same thing in Stafford where, he just wasn't, his reads and weren't as clean. He would sometimes go to the wrong read where there'd be 2 defenders and you'd see stuff. It's funny, Brendan, it's a little bit of the Russell Wilson syndrome. We see with the Seahawks offense with the falling in love with the deep ball. That's where Stafford wants to hit you, is down the field in chunks. But within this offense, you got to take the short stuff at times. And that's what and looking at him last week, that was where he would keep gravitating back down the field, looking deep, kind of like, I want to get that deep ball down the field. I want to get that 15, 20-yard shot. And it robbed him on a couple of throws.
Yeah. And I guess it's not shocking that Wilson, after playing like this for 9 years, would take a little while to move off of it. And a lot of it is on Carroll, because I feel like the way Wilson played the first 9 years of his career, for the most part, was exactly the way Carroll wants his quarterback to play.
100%.
I remember Wilson's rookie year sitting. At that time, I was working for AT&T, and I was sitting in an office cubicle. I used to actually work at a cubicle farm, and listening to people after Wilson's fourth game. That was against the Rams, actually. He had like 3 interceptions. We lost the game. It was a bad game. And they were talking about it. And they were saying, like, this Wilson guy, I don't know. And then the other guy was saying, well, this is the way Carroll likes his quarterbacks to play. Never throw the ball over the middle. Keep everything on the sidelines, because he thinks turnovers happen when you throw the ball over the middle. He wants him to always throw the ball deep, because those balls have a low percentage chance of resulting in a turnover that actually hurts your defense, because even interceptions are like punts. Basically saying this is the way Carroll wants his quarterbacks to play. And at some point you have to move off of that, because that's not how you win in the NFL most of the time. Now, it worked once, but I mean, we can blame Wilson for the way he plays football, but really, isn't he just kind of doing what Carroll, in his mind, has always wanted his quarterbacks to do? Lots of deep shots, run the ball, use your mobility, and don't throw over the middle. Just work the sidelines.
I think so. I think Carroll's the big author of this, and that he's a guiding hand of Russell when he walked in the door here as a rookie, and he's been here throughout his career. So, I'm sure, as you would contend on this as well, this comes down to this: back in 2017, when you brought in Schottenheimer, it should have been a Waldron type coach at that time, to let Russell Wilson grow in his development, to essentially get his postgraduate work in, is what he needed to do as a quarterback. Learn what he did not know. And I think there's a lot of things with these other old coordinators. They weren't all bad, but the bad parts of what they had in them is they weren't innovators, and they weren't drivers of where the game was going in the future with offensively speaking. And that's what Russell needed. And they waited too long on that. And I've definitely been a long railer on Carroll for waiting to do that. It's, again, part of that. You're not accepting that you've lucked your way in a little bit into a Hall of Fame quarterback, despite being a defensive minded coach who really looks at the offense with almost a little bit of a pitiful gaze. Unlike what Belichick did with Brady, for instance, and making that the transition he did from going to the Carroll type to, I got a Hall of Famer, let's go with that. And that's on Carroll. It will be. I don't hold Russell, accountable. And I think, again, Russell's doing great in this transition. I would not have expected him to play this cleanly, with the amount of short throws he's making and how he struggled at times in the past, that how well he's doing with it. And I think it's going to get, that's why I still think it looks to me like a trajectory of eventually getting up there through the season. It'll take a little bit of that time to really get there into the back end of the schedule, I think, to really see the fruits, where we're seeing 3.5 quarters of really good offensive football at that time. But I'm encouraged. I like what I see.
Yeah.
What do you, sorry, go ahead.
And one other thing, I don't want to, this is probably a bad time for me to even say this because of what might happen tonight, but another encouraging sign for this offense, Kyle Fuller actually played a good game against the Niners. Corbin Smith was on this on Twitter. He tweeted about it a little bit this week. He said, I actually think Kyle Fuller was our best offensive lineman. And if he can get to a point where he's at least not terrible, maybe he even gets to like average, that's big. That's big. And this is probably, I shouldn't even say this right now, because Aaron Donald's probably going to rip him apart like a pit bull tonight. But, stuff like that encourages me. I like that stuff. I think Gabe Jackson allowed 0 QB pressures, which was something that he had a problem with in the first 3 games. So these things, maybe they're starting to trend in the right direction. We're not going to talk about Dwayne Brown, because that's going to get on my nerves, but that's going to make me angry. But there are some things I like.
Somebody asked me in my comment section, you think he's sandbagging because he's just trying to keep himself clean for a contract this offseason? I was like, I don't know. He's got to earn that contract at 36 too. So I don't think he's doing that. Do you double Donald majority of the snaps in this game?
I would try to double him pretty much every snap.
Yeah, me too.
2 years ago, that Rams game, it might have been Thursday night, where we won because Zerline missed the field goal at the buzzer. Do you remember that game?
I do. The Paul and Blow game.
Yeah, I remember. We started that game trying to just single team Aaron Donald, and he was destroying us. And then finally, in I think the second quarter, we actually started doubling him, and the offense had a great game. The offense had a great last 3 quarters, and I'm like, okay, what part of your game plan this week said we're just going to treat Aaron Donald like he's just any other guy? Like I don't. So be proactive. Don't be reactive with this stuff. Don't watch Aaron Donald destroy you for a quarter and then realize what you need to do.
It's what the Cardinals did in that game. When my eyes trained down to look at what they were doing with Donald, every single time he had 2 offensive linemen on him. And I say offensive linemen because the Rams will move him along the defensive line. You'll get him even outlined on. They're putting a defensive end at times now. Cardinals didn't care. They go, okay, he'll be our right tackle and our right guard then. That's who you're dealing with now. And look, they had a lot of good. They got the great benefits from it, which I think Seattle would do too. Doesn't it feel a little bit like, just a little bit to you, Brendan, like maybe this production Donald's had throughout his time against the Seahawks, 13 sacks, 40 tackle for losses, that a majority of that production has come out of really the single blocking, that they've had that hard-headed approach to just singling him up throughout that time period?
Absolutely. I think there's been a lot of stubbornness in the way in which you defend some of these guys, where you just feel like we're going to do what we always do, and we believe it's going to work because we believe that it's going to work, and we're not going to change for who we're playing. But the reality is, tonight you are playing a team that is very top heavy. They have maybe the best defensive player in the league in Aaron Donald. They have the best cornerback in the league probably in Jalen Ramsey. And after that, maybe you talk about Leonard Floyd, but after that, there's a pretty steep drop off between their best players on D. Yeah. So you have to be willing to work within that. You have to be willing to do things differently depending on your opponent. And I think a lot of the problems we've had against the Rams have just been this desire to just do what we always do. I think there were some plays against the Colts this year, even this year, where you tried to single team DeForest Buckner with a offensive lineman who is not that good. And I look at that and I just go, can we be proactive and not reactive about some of this stuff?
That was Posick. They let Posick go one-on-one against Buckner. I go, really? Posick, you're going to have him try to take the really? That's just some of those times where it's like, it should just be an automatic mode. Get the guard into the side. I don't care how it's drawn. I'm just figuring that moment that I do the same. I would, anytime I get a chance to double in 2 linemen, I do it. The one place you can hit them, Aaron, watching the Cardinals game too, is they are a little bit weakened in that inside of the defense. I had a couple Cardinal fans come in, Rams fans come in the chat last night. And we're kind of mentioning a little bit of the fact that they're missing a little bit with the linebacker play. They're not as solid back there. Michael Brocker's absence is hurting them right now. That's a guy who I long rail. He was a great one tech for them for 10 years. Came out of that Bruce Irvin draft, and he's been really solid. He did the dirty work to let Aaron Donald go out there and just work. Let him basically just attack in the backfield all game, and then he just holds the blockers up. You lose that, and you don't really have a great replacement. They have decent talent guys. They got a kid from Washington down there who's one of the guys who's they're now new one tech, but they're just you're watching the Cardinals go at times right up into the middle and the teeth of that defense, running the ball, and they were having some success. It was part of why I thought Carson actually could have a bounce back game from at least the fan standpoint on this game, because those A gap runs that Seattle likes to run with him right over the top of those center there would be just tasty theoretically based on the tape you watch of the Rams.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm kind of sad, because for the record, I don't think Carson's going to play tonight. We don't know yet. As far as I know, we don't know, but I don't think he's going to play. I don't expect him to play, but this Rams defense has some real problems. You can move, and even in the games where they looked good, they didn't really look that good. The Bears moved the ball on them, no problem. They moved the ball up and down the field on them. They just couldn't score. They would turn the ball over in the red zone, or they would get to a awkward 4th down and go for it and not get it. But they moved the ball, no problem. The Colts moved the ball. They just couldn't score on them. Buccaneers had 450 yards of offense, and the Cardinals, I mean, they turned that into like a college game. Yeah. So that defense is clearly having problems. A lot of people are blaming it on Raheem Morris. He's clearly a downgrade from Brandon Allen, and Raheem Morris hasn't coached a good defense in over a decade. So that would make some. Yeah, I think somebody posted the stat that he hasn't had a defense in the top 20 since like 2010 or something like that. I don't know how these guys still get work, but whatever. We still have
the NFL loves its spin cycle of coaches, doesn't it? Like, you get into that mix, you're into the mix. You're Adam Gase. Like, you'll still keep finding a job, still keep sometimes. I don't know why, but you get a name to you. That's the way it seems to go.
Yeah. So I know that this offense is a work in progress, and this offense is missing some pieces for sure. We know that. No Carson, and I'm not even going to say no Penny, because we all expect that at this point. But you've also got no Eskridge, and it's not ideal, but you got to find a way to move the ball on this defense. You got to make sure that, and if you get beat, and you could easily get beat, you could play well on offense and still lose this game. but don't let it be because Aaron Donald lived in your backfield the whole game. Let it
Bingo.
be
Yeah.
somebody else. Don't
Yeah.
let it be because Jalen Ramsey was knocking down every pass you threw. Let it be somebody else. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
It's a beautiful point, dude. Don't let the best guy in the defense, maybe the best defender in all of football, be the one to wreck you if you've got an ability to control it. And unlike edge defenders, you have an ability to control it with the inside defensive tackle position. You can stack the center on the guard on a guy all day. Doesn't matter if he's here or here. I mean, when he goes to the outside, that's it. You can still figure another way through that, as the Cardinals did last week. But just make somebody else get you. Make it be other. And I think they're missing those losses from this last season. Jalen Johnson, that's center safety contract. He went out and signed in free agency. Troy Hill, Michael Brockers, Samson Ekubon, who went to the 49ers. I'd reckon to guess their run stopping has gone down a little bit with him gone. That's a lot to try to just on its own to just good guys across the court. Say nothing of Staley, like to your point, who's having a great doing. He's turned that Chargers defense around overnight. And it seems Raheem has taken it maybe back a little bit of a step there. So they've got it's touchdowns too, not field goals in this game, Brendan. Like you're talking about these teams, and to your points on those teams driving to the field, just couldn't get points. Driving the field, touchdowns. Seattle's been a good red zone team this year overall. We got to continue to maintain that in this game. That's going to be the thing I think that will drive us at our best forward.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we've been able to rely on with this offense over the last few years. Ever since Schottenheimer got here. And that's one thing that I appreciated about Schottenheimer. He made our red zone offense really great. Like we started scoring touchdowns when he got here. And so far this year, we've done a good job of that as well. We're not settling for field goals. We are cashing in on we may not have a lot of drives throughout the game where we move the ball, but when we do move the ball, we're usually getting points. So I have a good amount of confidence that we're going to be able to do that. The question is, can we move the ball in the first place? Can we do the hard part?
Yeah, sustain those drives, right? Because it's probably not going to be, the Rams know that you want to hit they're going to fall back and first test you on your old habits. I bet in this game, Rams defensive wise, which is to say, we'll take away the deep stuff here. We'll pull back on that. And then we'll make you be patient, make you be short. Let's see if you're really going to embrace this new offense in that way and get it done. And that will be, hopefully Seattle does that. Hopefully they do it. They'll mix a balance of run and pass, to me, is the way to go and get that. Where any kind of other big keys you see on this game, any battles, obviously the DK Ramsey battle, but anything that you see on this game that is probably going to be a marker to driving success here as well, be it just anything.
Well, I know we don't have Gerald Everett, so I am looking at Will Dissly because those Rams linebackers, like you said, they're not playing that well right now. It doesn't seem like they're doing great at that position. And they lost some safety depth this offseason. So I'm really looking at Will Dissly because I remember one of his best games was 2 years ago against the Rams.
That game you mentioned, the Paul Allen game you're talking about. That was and not just, by the way, Reeder was the linebacker for the Rams at that time. Their little tiny middle linebacker they got. And that's who he was smoking in coverage.
Right. So I'm looking for that because I understand that you would prefer to have Gerald Everett out there. And it really is unfortunate that I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know if he's taking some off-brand COVID test or something, but it keeps apparently going positive, negative every day. I don't know what's going on there, but I know you don't have him, but I'm still thinking you can maybe attack those linebackers with Dissly and maybe some Parkinson too, because Parkinson, I think he played well against the Niners. He was getting open. He just never got the ball thrown his way. And I thought he was blocking well too.
He was open that DK play, that crosser DK ran, and he's and he's wide open. I'm like, Russ will just throw it. Pure Russ, by the way. I could take the first down throw for 7 or 8, 9 yards here. Oh no, I'm going DK 30 yards on the football field. Yeah, I love his aggressiveness.
Well, he was open. I can't be too mad about it.
I can't either. Hey, it's DK's down there. He's open. Make that throw. Russ had a clear view. He knew what was going on. It's just a good play call, frankly. I like the running of that 2 players running in the same place at that point is how you get one free, because you make a zone defender have to choose between one or the other. They can't cover 2 in the same space. And that's kind of what it seemed like it had happened there. And DK still beat his guy with them trying to cover him on that. Also, to your point on that, I was looking at the stats on our tight end because I thought this jumped out to me, in that when we've utilized our tight ends, they've been good. They've got 15 catches on 16 targets, only about 170 yards, but they're averaging like 11 yards per catch and a touchdown. So when we throw to our tight ends this year, good things seem to happen. We just don't seem to be throwing to our tight ends all that much.
Right. And I kind of broke down the tight end usage against the Titans specifically because that was the game where Everett had 1 catch for 3 yards and Dissly had nothing. So I was really looking at that one game. And one issue, and this is probably just has to do with Waldron being young and needing to get some experience, on third downs, on passing third downs, It seemed like Everett was just running throwaway routes where it would be like 3rd and 9, and then he would run into the flat where he's not real. Wilson's never going to look at him because even if he catches it, it's going to be like 4 yards and you're punting anyway. And I saw some other plays where he was blocking on 3rd down. I saw some other plays where he was just basically kind of put in a place where he had no chance to have a positive effect on the play.
Right.
So I can't really put that on the tight ends or the quarterback. That seems to me to be a schematic issue. And at the end of the day, Shane Waldron, this is the first time in his career where he's actually been a play caller. You got to give him some time.
100%.
Things are not going to be perfect, but that was one thing that I noticed, and I hope that I don't see again personally.
Well, in Seattle, and teams love to run to take away the deep stuff from us, the cover 2 stuff, which goes deep. One of the cover 2 beaters is going to be those seam routes with tight ends going right up the middle of the seam. And so that's where tonight you want to look for a place to attack. If you, again, to reference that game you referenced, which was that Rams game and that reader, just that there's that one throw in the game where I was like, it was one of those moments where like, man, Will Disley can be a star if he could do that, where Russell put it right over his shoulder, over the top, readers in decent coverage, but it's just Disley's bigger than him and he's outrunning him a little bit. And that was right up the seam on that type of throw against this, similar Rams defense. It's a little different probably this year, but that's to me where you can get, that's just, if Waldron looks at kind of the stats on that one, wow, good things are happening, lean back a little more in your play calling and utilizing those guys. Let's try to get him some more touches, some more catches. Cause I think there's some production to be had there.
Right. And I guess the other matchup I'm interested in, and I usually don't give a rip about this kind of stuff at all, but the run defense, because it has not been good the last 3 games, really. And the Rams' run offense has not been good either. They're averaging like 3.8 yards a carry. They're near the bottom of the league. I don't know if they're going to try to run the ball that much. This might just be a game where they kind of play like the way the Bills did against us last year, where they don't even want to bother. They're not going to waste their time because they know they can pass on us. But when they do run, I want to see what we do, because there has to be some foundation of solid defense on this team at some point. And right now, we're not even getting it from the run defense, which has been a constant since Carroll got here. And we're playing 2-1 techs, basically. We're playing all these linebackers that are good against the run, and yet we're not seeing good results. Some people think it's just because of the 5-man fronts that we're playing. I don't know what it is exactly that's a decent candidate to blame, but I want to see the run defense improve just so we have some kind of foundation.
It's to me, it always usually comes back to this. There's times it's not this. Sometimes it's one guy just messing up and he's getting blown out of his gap. But it usually comes down to gap control and guys not doing too much. It's the old do your job stuff. And like when I saw a play last week, I think this big starting play of the game against the Niners. Alden Robinson's playing the Sam linebacker at the line of scrimmage, and he comes right upfield off of the snap. And the problem is that his job to sit there as that 5th guy in the line is to set the edge and turn everything back inside, which instead he leaves his gap, gets upfield, and then the running back gets out over what would have been his responsibility. And the Sam linebacker role is such a dirty job. It's sort of because it's not glamorous, but you literally your job is to set that edge and hold your ground. But guys want to attack. And when I've watched our defense have problems in the running game this year a little bit, it's guys getting out of their gaps, not getting their gap control, not just standing pat, not holding their ground. And it ends up causing these kind of problems we're seeing replicate themselves over and over in games, even though to last week's game to a smaller margin than we've seen recently, where the Vikings and Titans were just barrel rolling us. But that is the part I lean back into and go, okay, you guys, this is you like I said, defense is built at its base to stop the run and prevent the big plays. But even before big plays, Brendan, stop the run. That's Carroll's beginnings. That's where it all starts from there. And you're not able to do it when you're putting, like you said, a de facto 5th defensive lineman down there with the 2-1 techs, with a guy even like Jordan Brooks, who's supposed to be programmed first and foremost to be a run stopper when he's on the field. It's discouraging, and they've got to clean that up tonight, though I agree with you in the respect of McVay's not stupid. He knows where he can go after this Seahawks defense, and he's going to attack and probably attack Sidney Jones all game. Where are you at on Sidney Jones last game, which I was encouraged, but where do you sit on that?
I mean, I'm willing to give him some time, but there's no way he played good in that game. There's just no way. He blew. Some people were trying to say it was Jamal Adams' fault, but he blew that coverage on that 76-yard touchdown. Shanahan clearly thought he could pick on him.
Yeah.
Shanahan clearly thought like, okay, Sidney Jones, throw it at his guy. He got targeted like 6 times in the first quarter alone. I actually broke it down on my channel. And I think the game that he had was just as bad, possibly worse than any game Trey Flowers has ever played. So I think what really bailed him out was the fact that he played against a bad quarterback. Garoppolo had a couple of first downs on him and just missed the throw. There was another throw where I think he was going to give up a first down and the pass got batted. So I don't know. I'm kind of over blaming players for this stuff anymore. I think I've said this before, but to me, there's something schematic here. You can't tell me that Sidney Jones or Trey Flowers is going, I want to play 10 yards off my receiver on 3rd and 10. I think that's a good idea. Like, he's being told to do that. He just has to be.
Yeah.
Like, so
I agree.
that's kind of why I fell where I fell on the Stephon Gilmore thing. Like, would we bring in Gilmore and just tell him to do the same stuff that we're telling these guys to do, where he's playing 10 yards off? Maybe. I don't know. So that's another thing. It's like, that's kind of why I'm a little concerned about trading for more defensive talent, because I kind of feel like Carroll has had all these opportunities to bring in all this talent and he's not doing anything with it. I don't know if I want to give him more talent that he can continue to waste if that ends up being the result, which I feel like it could be.
I waver back and forth on that, Brendan. I go back and forth. There's days that I wake up and I'm like, yeah, F it. You took a crap in this bed. You can sleep in it, figure it out, clean it yourself. Then there's a part of me that goes, well, recent years, when you bring in a Quandre Diggs in 2019, it does bring the defense together. And when you do bring in a Carlos Dunlap last year as a pass rusher at that time, and when you did the trade deadline, it did kind of help the defense out a little bit, though. Again, we played against lesser competition, so we got to nuance that a little bit. I don't know, though. I bounce back and forth between it. I do end up, I think, of the bottom line arrival for me is that then fine, go all offense, build your super offense then.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what you're going to do, then fine, go whole hog onto that side of the ball, put all these $13 million assets into it, put a few draft picks towards it. I mean, look at how the Panthers have gone for it. That's not a Super Bowl contending team. They're down to like 2 picks in the upcoming draft, because they've been making these trades for CJ Henderson and Stephon Gilmore, and they're all in right now and trusting that team. Should they be? Probably not. It's probably not a team that's it'll get in the playoffs. I don't think it's going to, and it's a great defense they're building, but I don't think that's,
they tried really hard to trade for Jalen Smith too, but couldn't make it happen. So
really?
They have their hand in every pie. And Carroll said yesterday about Gilmore, he's like, oh, we're in on everything. Starting to wonder if that's true sometimes.
I'm with you. I'm at this point in time where some of that stuff, that nomenclature, starts to go, is it really, are you just giving me platitudes here? Are we just getting kind of just sayings now with that? Are you really on it? Or did you just make a call and then you hung right up and there was really no negotiation at all going down with it? I'm right with you, man. Don't go defense. Fine. Build the offense, find the lineman, find a receiver, find a running back. I'm not even going to be picky about it, Brendan. Not even going to be picky about it. Upgrade the offense further beyond this. Let's build it to the super offense for this season. At the very least, that's going to encourage Russell to feel like we're embracing a little bit more of an offensive model. And at this point, if like coming after this game, Brendan, let's say we lose after this game. If Carroll cannot arrive after this game, if we get just blown out, I mean, I'm talking 40 points back at home, and he can't look at the situation at that point and come to the realization that I'm defensively kind of past myself here. I'm not going to be able to turn this around this year. There's not built on just me bringing a guy or two in like those previous years I referenced. And he doesn't arrive at the standpoint of, okay, if I really want to still try to be a Super Bowl contending this year, go offense. I don't know what he would need further as far as more data to arrive at that place. He's getting to a point of almost not, I'm not going to psychosis, but like cognitive dissonance. That's the word that I would reference, man. There's a little bit of that where it's just, no matter what he sees from a factual standpoint, he's going to go, just don't see it.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be too surprised by that. He's been doing this for 4 decades. Yeah. You're not gonna. I mean, if he was somebody who was young, then maybe. But he's the oldest coach in the league. We talk about that all the time, and he's been doing this for 4 decades. And honestly, most coaches are stubborn. I can think of very few coaches in sports who I wouldn't describe as stubborn. Yeah. They take a while to be moved off what they think is right. I've given some really good examples before, and I don't think we can be terribly surprised by that. It's definitely frustrating to watch because this is such a unique situation where you have a defensive first head coach who found a quarterback kind of out of nowhere who could maybe be that guy who wins MVP trophies and carries you to 13 win seasons just on the strength of his ability.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I assume that if you do get killed tonight, and I'll be straight, I'll be honest, it's easy to imagine this team getting killed tonight. It's not that hard to construct in your mind how it happens.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to get killed by the Niners. Even if we lost that game, I just couldn't see a way for them to blow us out. But it's easy to imagine us playing 12 yards off receivers because that's what we do in every game. And then Stafford just takes his free 15 yards every play. And then on defense, we try to single team Aaron Donald because we've done it before. And then he destroys us. And we're just trying to throw deep passes all day against cover 2 or whatever defense they end up playing. It's easy to put it together in your head.
Yeah.
But at that point, I imagine, I hate to say it, I have to imagine that this team would just hold back and know that they have 3 relatively winnable games coming up where you can win those games without even necessarily turning the corner. And then suddenly maybe you're feeling a lot better about yourself at 5-3. And then people feel like, well, we don't really need to do anything.
Yeah. I think you're on point with that being the likelihood of where they really go with their thinking coming on the heels of some kind of loss like that, which would, I think, be unfortunate because, again, at the end of the day, you won't be a bad team this year. It just will be a decision that helps propel you into a state where you probably don't get to that promised land, to a conference championship. You might sneak in the back door of the playoffs at that point, but outside of the luck and injury, or you just are on some phenomenal roll, which has happened in NFL history, but it's an anomaly. And as we talked about, don't count on anomalies. It's probably unlikely. It goes in that other direction. Well, I know you don't like to do these, but we do these nonetheless. And I think what were you on last week? Didn't you just about hit the score dead on?
No, I said 2-0 last week, so I definitely no. I think I said something like 27-21, so I was really close.
I think you were pretty close. I was 24-21, so we're doing pretty good on it. Even though we don't like the predictions, Brendon, you're doing all right with it. All right, so all right, where you got tonight? Give me your break, not just the score. Give me a flow of game, just a quick flow of game. You know what I mean?
I was feeling pretty good yesterday when the injury report came out because it was surprisingly clean. And one thing I do like about this injury report is that we have no real injuries on defense except for Trey Brown, and who cares?
Yeah.
So the defense has no excuse. If your defense gets gutted tonight, then there's nobody to blame but the people who put that defense together. You can't say, well, if we had this guy or that guy, things would have been different. No, there's no this guy or that guy.
Yeah. No excuse.
But as this day has gone on, now we're starting to see the problems on offense where we're not going to have Gerald Everett. Chris Carson has been ruled out. I kind of sort of am starting to turn the other way, I have to admit. And with the things you're missing on that offense, like Everett's big, Carson might not be big, but he matters on some level. I'm kind of starting to feel more like
Eskridge too.
Yeah, Eskridge, but we knew about Eskridge. We kind of figured he wasn't going to be there. I'm starting to feel something in the vein of like a 34-31 game going in favor of the Rams, but I think it can come down to one play at the end. I'll say that. That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
I think we can get it to the point where it comes down to 1 or 2 plays at the end of the game, but I just kind of felt my optimism drain a little bit when I saw things like Everett out, Carson out. It adds up.
I agree with you. I'm definitely don't have a lot of confidence on this game. I think there's a wide variance of what we could see as far as outcomes here, and I wouldn't be surprised by any of them. Whereas some games you can kind of, like last week, probably a hard fought affair. No one's really going to get way out ahead of anybody really, and it's going to be kind of just back and forth. This one's one where you can see it being all over the place. And it does dissuade me with like guys like Everett or Eskridge. You got those 2 guys coming into this game. You feel better about the way you can attack that defense, where right now you can't do much in the fly sweep game. And Parkinson still is an untested commodity. We don't know what he can do. He's got some talent, but they had supposedly a 1st round grade on him back and coming out, and whatever that says about the front office looking at him that way. I, like you, it's weird. I did literally last night, and this is where I've landed on, is 34-31 myself. I'm not propelled by any one thing outside of their tremendous primetime record and Coach Carroll and Russell Wilson and their history here in Seattle. Being it's a Thursday night, which is a weird kind of game anyway, and tends to favor the home team over the
Right.
traveling team.
I'm really leaning on that. That's one of the
Yeah.
things I really need to lean on.
That's where I'm literally only coming down on that stretch of it, Brendan. I don't have like a schematic thing that says, well, we're going to be able to hit them like this just so well. That'll be the thing that drives this win forward. I think it's a 34-31 game. Not a lot of confidence, but it's those outside things, the action green undefeated, which blinds the opponent. Like we can't undersell that, Brendan, right? You blind
Right.
the opponent with that bright neon. It's like, boom. So I'm all those things I'm putting together, which all have very little to do with X's and O's and how you match up. I'm just putting my prayers and hopes upon it that can kind of guide us through. But I'm going to sit on that point of it. I could just easily see your score though. I could easily see it being 40-24 Rams coming out of this game,
Yeah. And I kind of said something similar last week. I'll say it again. There have been a handful of times in the Pete Carroll era where I've expected the Seahawks to get blown out.
Yeah.
And they have answered the bell in those games. They haven't always won, but they've always answered the bell. The handful of times we've gotten blown out, Packers 2016, Rams 2017, I didn't really see it coming. When I see it coming, and in my head tonight, I'm kind of like prepared for the possibility. This team has answered the bell. In Foxborough in 2016, Philly in 2017. To a certain extent, I was ready to get whipped against the Rams 2 years ago. That game we won. So there is something to be said for that. This team usually does find a way to answer the bell, but at the end of the day, these things, they're not magic. The action green uniforms are not magic. Lumen Field is not magic. The Seahawks logo is not magic. The thing that's magic in football is executing a play. The magic in football is outplaying your guy. And at the end of the day, you have to do those things. And I don't know if we're there yet.
It's well said, and this team has not earned yet the unbreakable confidence of somebody who watches this team very closely as you do, and coming to the respect of just giving them always a turn saying, "Yo, you win, you'll just win because you win." No, you got to show us on what I'm watching prior, and there's a lot they've shown prior here. Which while there's been some good, there has been a lot of bad. And this team right now that we're playing today, this team is a lot closer in its ability from a talent standpoint, if not better, than the Titans, than the Vikings. Whereas the Colts and the Niners are kind of probably both in the same type of place. Those teams aren't making the playoffs this year, and you beat them, which is good. But perspective matters, and wins matter. The wins against the type of opponent matters. So it's why this isn't necessarily a shock if it does go this other direction. We're both, I know, hopeful that it doesn't, but it's understandable why you could see it potentially moving that way, especially with those key losses. Like you said, I mentioned that A-gap runs are not really as much Alex Collins' bread and butter. He can do inside stuff, but he's kind of more of a get him in space, let him work his moves, let him do his little river dance, So you don't necessarily have as much of the guy together. Certainly Carr, you're not going to want to put Travis Homer in there. Did you see his he had that one carry this last week, Brendan, where he gets to the outside, gets 5 yards. He doesn't seem like he gets jacked up way more than most running backs. Like the second he gets hit, he's helicoptering in the air. If you're just keep an eye out for Homer, it's just that thing that jumps out at me. I swear when he'll get out in space, he'll get his yards. But here comes as soon as the impact comes with the tacklers, he is off his feet and he's doing the weird like dead man float. It's wild to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the work Homer does for this team in a couple areas, but he is what he is. Real quick, the inactives list just got released before we go.
All right.
So we've got Chris Carson,
okay,
Jake Curhan, John Reed, Stone Forsythe, and this one's kind of interesting. Robert Kemdichi, LJ Collier, active. So maybe he'll be the linchpin.
Oh Lord, just had to give me that little bit of news, didn't you? Just had to give me that little bit of goodness, huh? Why are you savaging me right now, Brendan? Why are you savaging me, man? That's just turning it in and just twisting that knife on me. They're gonna try to make LJ. They're gonna try to drum up some trade value for LJ before the trade deadline, I guess. Oh, hey man, he gets his umpteenth chance. Maybe this will be the one where finally the light bulb goes on. Kim Ditchy hasn't been awful. He's been all right. He's not been like great or good. He's been okay.
He does his job.
He does his job.
Does his job.
He's made some tackles in there. He's not been the first round talent. We thought we might be getting back into play here, but he's been functional. Well, right before we go, let me just get a couple. I think we got at least one chat here. I want to acknowledge Randall McDaniel, a longtime supporter on the channel. Thank you, Randall. Says, let's go, Brandon, and let's go, Brendan. We got to, by the way, Brendan, think of we got to think of a name for the show. B&B has kind of been the front runner.
That's a pretty good one.
That is a pretty good one. So we're gonna have to figure out the titles on my end with that. We can come up with some running titles or something. But yeah, we'll keep rolling on that with this. And I guess we're about right now, an hour in. It's a good time to wrap up here just before the start. Want to thank really quickly, Brendon, my sponsor on the show, Manscaped. Manscaped.com. Boys, you got anything necessary in the lower regions? Just getting yourself trimmed up. You want nose hair trimmers? Sometimes you get older, those suckers come out. Go over to manscaped.com. Why? Because they have given us a specialized discount. They're sponsoring the show now here at the Hawks Nest. They've been very kind to do so. Give them the discount code of NEST, N-E-S-T. Save yourself 20% off. Free shipping. Help out the show. Win, 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 win. Thank you to Manscaped for that. Brendon, any final kind of thoughts here before we do a sign off? Just anything else?
I mean, all I can say is that, fair or not, if you do win this game, and again, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but you will restore a lot of belief in this fan base.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the line tonight for that. Like, you're going to forget real quick that we lost to the Titans and Vikings if you win this game.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to get us believing again, if you want us to start to believe that maybe this team can get to where we were hoping they would get to before the season started, then go get it done. Then go get it done. And like I said, this defense has no excuse. Perform or get out. You're healthy. Everybody's playing except for Trey Brown. So on that side of the ball, I can at least say we have no excuse. And if they don't show up, then I'm going to just be sitting here like, well, that was a complete waste of 4 years of building a team.
Well said, my guy. And I concur with you 100%. There are no excuses coming into this type of game. You've had time to build this team. You've got the horses out there to get it done by what you've constructed, by what you've wanted. You've handpicked what you've wanted to put out there. So you need to make it work. You need to go in. You're right. If you come out there and you give us a good performance tonight, if you come out there and you show us the fire that we're looking for, and that the team that really wants to go get it this year, you will have believers in guys like me and Seahawks Brendon Nelson over there. You'll have Hawks Nest will be on board. We'll be riding with you. But you got to show it to us. And tonight's the night to show it. This is the opponent to show it. They've been your nemesis recently. They've beat you up enough over recent past history. Let's knock the genius of McShay down a notch. Let's drive this up. Let's us take back over this thing. And you can take it by the horns right now. So it's in their hands, man. It's in their hands. They've got the horses to do it. Yeah. They're in their home. Thursday night, prime time. Let's get it, Brendon. Let's get this thing, huh?
Yeah, and you know what? If the defense shows up tonight, maybe I'll even lay off Carroll a little bit because I've been hard on him to start this season, I think. And you know what? If the defense does show up, then on some level it does show that at least some part of what he's doing is working. So, hey, if the defense shows up tonight and plays good enough for us to win, I'll even give him some credit for that. And it's not easy for me to give Carroll credit for anything right now because I don't really like him right now.
There's a lot of gritted teeth talking about him as far as me too. And I don't try to hammer him all the time. I still understand that the guys, there's been some things like you watching this team that bother you because you see it happening over and over again in certain respects and not get fixed. But I will be like you. I will be giving him a pass and I'll be lauding him. If they come out there and stop this Rams offense, this is the nemesis now. This is the old 49ers from the early 2000s. This is who this has been come now. You've solved the Niners. You got them pretty handled. Cardinals, it's a back and forth. This one, they've had the better of you. And specifically by how that offense has beat your defense. Get it fixed tonight. You got your horses. You got everybody going. Those fans are going to be crazy in that stadium, screaming their butt. They've been drunk since 1 o'clock this afternoon. So come on, team. Let's go get it. Let's get this dub.
Use that home field advantage. Don't start 0-2 at home, too. That's embarrassing. This team should not be doing that ever.
No. What do you make of the 33 and 31 record of road opponents this season in the NFL, by the way?
I think that's probably just a side effect of these teams learning how to play on the road a little bit better. I think that just it's easier to travel. It's easier to play miles away from home. It's kind of like a more extreme example, but back in the 60s in the NBA when these guys were flying coach, they would and sometimes you would just go on the road and you got no chance of winning.
Yeah.
You're not going to win. So I think things have just gotten easier in that regard. I think that maybe you're seeing I hate to use this word, but real fans maybe get priced out of going to these games. They'd rather just watch it at home. And the seats end up going to people who are just there because it's the thing to do. That's kind of what happened to the Warriors fans back a while ago. They had that one We Believe Warriors year where the fans were just going crazy and propelled them to the second round. And then the next year, going to Warriors games became the cool thing to do. So only rich people went who didn't even really care if the Warriors won or not. And it wasn't the same.
Yeah, I've noticed the same. It's why, Brendon, I'm going to be doing not a hype video even for the 12th man here pretty soon. I'm going to be doing a call to arms video for the 12th man because I've gone to that stadium post 2015 and we have not been as loud. And I think that's to your point of what you're talking about, is that the crowd's gotten a little in there of just, it's the thing to do and just to watch. But you have a birthright here in Seattle. You have a birthright of what you need to do when you go in that stadium, which is scream your brains out and help your football club, because you have a tangible effect on the football game. And we should never forget that. But it takes everybody to get there. Everybody to get there, man. So, well, I have put down in the description section of this video, Brendon, a link to Brendon Nelson's channel. He does daily Seahawks content, multiple videos a day. He's on top of all of the news that's out there and rolling around. And it's, if you want to be on top of your Seahawks information, you want to know all of what's going on, the quick and easy breakdown, and it's going to give you the full spectrum of understanding what is happening. Brendon's channel is going to give that to you. So we're syncing up for a reason here, folks. We both dig what the other's doing as far as their, where they're coming from and how they're trying to operate. And he is intensive, exhaustive, and he really covers them in a great way. So get over to his channel. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe to his channel. Get good content. We're growing here out on YouTube. He's on his way, man. You're going to be at 10,000 here before the season's over. Here, you keep rolling. I like you are.
Yeah, so we're trying. We're trying.
You're killing it, brother. You're killing it, brother. So please go over there, support his channel. I'll be back over on his channel on Thursday night. Let's go get this win, Brendon. Let's go 3-2. Let's get back up on our horse here, huh? Let's go get it.
Absolutely. Let's get our gusto back.
Well, my name's Brandon. His name's Brendon.
And see you guys later. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks, baby.